I'm Thomas Birr. I'm Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer of E.ON, and it's a great pleasure for me today to speak to you at the Israeli Energy Tech All-Star event 2024. E.ON is one of Europe's largest operators of distribution grids, and we are the largest customer company in Europe. We serve more than 50 million customers all over Europe in 16 countries. And for us, infrastructure is the backbone for the energy transition. There are a lot of challenges along that way. The demand of electricity is constantly growing, and renewables need to be connected to the grid, connected to the infrastructure. All the energy transformation is happening in the distribution grids, and complexity is ever increasing. Now, the topic of my short talk today is the European energy transition. What an amazing journey. What I want to bring across today is the following. The transformation is an ambitious journey, but it's really worth the effort. Secondly, it's a huge challenge for society, for politicians, and for industry. And thirdly, with all the benefits, there are multiple pitfalls where we have to take care that the whole journey doesn't derail. With a closer look to the European energy transition, we need to face reality today. By 2030, Europe's goal is to have reduced the CO2 emissions by 55%, quite ambitious. The cornerstones of this plan are set by the Fit for 55 program of the European Union, comprising the rules of play for renewables and infrastructure build-out. Heavy investments are needed to build the infrastructure. According to one of the latest Euroelectric studies, more than 67 billion euros of investments annually between 2025 and 2050 are needed to deliver a distribution grid that will enable the energy transition. That means we are speaking about a total amount of investment of roughly 700 billion in the next 10 years. Part of the problem is these investments are front-loaded, meaning that the majority of investments are made at the beginning of the project timeline to quickly build the necessary infrastructure and to realize the long-term benefits, which indeed only materialize in the later years. And that journey requires politicians, companies, and investors to think way forward. We as E.ON, for example, we are committed to increase our capex from 27 to more than 40 billion euros in the next 5 years. And it's worth the journey again. Last year we connected the millionth connection point to our grid. When I talk about connection points, I'm talking about rooftop solar, utility scale solar, wind farms all over Europe. That all looks pretty good. What we have to bear in mind, this amount is really skyrocketing and going through the roof. We expect that by 2030 we will have connected 6 million renewable assets to our grids. And we are highly committed to deliver this story and to deliver this journey, because the journey is worth it. There are two striking economical benefits to the whole European energy transition. First of all is the efficiency improvement. Investments in modern infrastructure and technology can reduce energy costs simply by reducing the waste of energy. If you import fossil fuels, you always have an efficiency loss of up to 40% when we talk about fossil power generation, or even more than 85% if you think about car engines or public or private transport. Renewable energy, which is generated domestically, is almost one-to-one energy efficiency. And the second advantage is even more striking. Shifts from import into a domestic economy. We are shifting wealth generation from simply importing fuels like oil, like coal, like gas from abroad into a renewable system which is happening in Europe. Expanding domestic energy production and distribution can reduce dependency on energy imports on the one hand, but it also strengthens the domestic economy and creates local jobs, leading to a more stable and robust economy on the long run. So that these are the two striking advantages. First of all, efficiency gain, and secondly, transfer from an import economy into a domestic economy. It also means we are shifting from an OPEX-based energy system into a CAPEX-based energy system. Through the initial high investments in capital expenditure and CAPEX, long-term benefits are created that reduce operational expenditures and enable a more sustainable, efficient economy. But that's really a tough journey now to bring across to our citizens and to our voters in Europe. It simply means that there are initial investments and initial efforts necessary to become more wealthy, to become more stable, and to become more resilient in our energy systems on the long run. And that's an amazing journey. Again, it's worth it. However, it can derail. You know, what are the challenges of this European journey? You know, the European energy journey is always labeled as the European bringing the man on the moon project. Is it really a helpful metaphor? It's always an all or nothing story. So what happened if JFK said, "Dear people of America, my dream is to bring a man halfway to the moon"? That would be worth nothing. So, but if you think about the energy transition, it's not about ambitious goals. It's not about, let's say, goals on paper, a competition of even higher goals. It's about getting the ball rolling, getting the whole project started. That is so important. At the moment, we see on a macro-European scale, the execution is falling slightly short, even though there is happening an awful lot in revamping, in renovating all the systems. Don't get me wrong on this. And we as E.ON, we are working almost on our limits to get the energy transformation delivered. But currently, Europe's trend of lowering the CO2 emissions is more than 40% than the 55% till 2030, which is on the plan. That means Europe could face a prolongation of the transition bridge by 5 to 10 years. That may result in potentially overshooting the 1.5 degree climate goal that can lead to higher long-term costs. It could even affect energy security if the grid is not expanding as fast as electricity demand is growing, and ultimately puts political and social commitment at risk, as failure to meet interim targets can undermine public trust and the credibility of climate policies, making it harder to mobilize future action. What do we observe in Europe today on our way? A quick reality check which show you that ambitious 2050 goals sometimes face a tough landing when it comes to the day-to-day little steps. Our big problem, children, are transport and heat. Both sectors need to do far more in the next 7 years, far more than they have done in the past 23 years to reach their decarbonization targets. On the other hand, on the cost side, we have seen the offshore wind cost increase by far more than 40%, simply due to interest rates, to material cost, to logistics cost, only over the last 3 years. Offshore projects all over the planet, but particularly in Europe, get cancelled or stopped or even delayed. Wholesale electricity prices will certainly not drop to the level in 2020. Cost of new generation will make the bridge more expensive. Cost-wise, solar, PV and battery combined already beat wind, which delivers a shift from wind energy into the future power of the solar century, which is PV. And for everyone who says, okay, let's then do a step back and get back into gas, I can say this is really walking on thin ice. Gas is not going to fix it. Relying on LNG means walking on thin ice. sudden scarcity could push prices up too high again. I'm deeply convinced the global energy transition will unfold at the end of the day, but just not according to the script. It's a great project, it's worth fighting for it. There are, however, 3 big challenges which can make the whole project derail. Firstly, it's as simple as that. It's a challenge that we see all over the world, obvious regulatory nonsense. Technologies and decarbonization levers should be reflected against their actual abatement costs and indirect impact on energy infrastructure. We have to rethink set goals such as, for example, the hydrogen agenda, as it's one of the most expensive decarbonization levers. It costs us more than 1,000 euro per ton of CO2 avoided as abatement costs. Let's refocus on other measures like renovations of buildings, CCS, or blue hydrogen instead of green hydrogen, which could cut the costs by a factor of 3. Let's think and act more rational in making that happen. Because if costs go to the roof and costs really matter, it will be very difficult in democratic systems to defend and to justify the tough measures that everyone has to face. The second moment where the energy transformation could derail is the heat transition. High investments are required from the customers to install a heat pump compared to a gas boiler, for example. That is strong investment and additional renovation costs. Not everyone can participate. So we need intelligent subsidy schemes for those people who cannot afford this journey, who cannot afford the transformation, to make a focused subsidies and help the people to transform. And that leads me to the third point, wrong allocation of costs. Affordability and acceptance of energy transformation must be secured. For that, we need to think about a future-proof grid fee scheme, including assessing the idea of moving towards more capacity-based grid fees, for example, as one of the levers. So let's adjust and allocate the cost where they really get born. What matters to us as E.ON beyond all the macro challenges? So first of all, what I'm telling my colleagues constantly is that in a solar century where we are expecting to come to, flexibility is king. We need to prepare for that and find digital solutions to aggregate and integrate flexibility into the future systems. Secondly, we need to electrify the heat. Heat transition is one of the biggest levers to decrease CO2 emissions. Heat pumps, smart usage of waste heat, and AI-based solutions for municipal heat planning as a key enabler are really of the assets, are instrumental to deliver on the heat transition. And thirdly, we need to take the big shots out of the drawer to make up for burning the carbon budget. CCUS, carbon credit trade, removal technologies, and intercontinental interconnectors between Europe and Africa, between Europe and the Middle East, can provide new hope to get closer to our decarbonization targets. Energy transition is a global challenge. No sector, no company will master it alone. We need the sector coupling as a prerequisite for the energy transformation to happen. Last but not least, it requires innovation, advanced technologies and efficient solutions. You guys in Israel, known as a startup nation, has a vibrant tech ecosystem, particularly strong in energy tech and sustainability innovations. That's where we are working very closely with the Israeli startup ecosystem. We are proud partners of Ignite the Spark and the Energy Tech All-Stars event. These initiatives are needed to bring all players together. Large companies, investors and startups to master the energy transition together. Thank you very much.